how would you describe TYI and TMI?
There really are there's not one word or a series of words. There's so many. It's hopefully life-changing, but at the same time, it was so much fun.
I went to TYI 1 year as a kid. I wasn't the kind of kid that gravitated towards Army events, especially spiritual events.
I think you got some help.
Yeah, well.
My first TMI was when it was combined with TYI. So it's kind of hard for me to think of them separately in terms of overall mission and what we tend to accomplish. We're here to identify our best and brightest young people. We're here to develop leadership. So we need to look at their spiritual formation, and we need to look at giving them specific skills for serving in their core leadership.
TYI and TMI can be very unpredictable.
The most unpredictable thing that happened for me, we went into our room. We were tired, worked hard. We were getting old.
We were getting old.
We were getting old. So, I needed to go to bed, and opened our door in the barn unit there at Hoblet Cell, and somebody had put a horse in our
A live horse, a real horse.
A real live horse. It was fine and funny, ha, 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 ha. And then at midnight, you can take a horse out of the room, but you can't take the smell of a horse out.
I passed the baton to Nick Simmons Smith when I retired for TMI, and I stayed away for a couple of years, as I should have. But I got invited back, surprising.
This was, at the risk of sounding very old, this was in the early 90s, 90 to 95, and things were changing. This was right at the time that violence in schools had become an issue, and the kids were having to walk through metal detectors to get into school. One Sunday after we had the morning holiness meeting, we had asked the kids to write on a piece of paper something that they needed the Lord to release them from. And then we tied them to white balloons and had a huge balloon release. And watching those things disappear into the heavens so symbolically, and seeing kids just sobbing as they were released was a very powerful moment.
I remember planning the TYI and everything was working well. But Bill kept saying, I can't come up. I don't know what to preach about. I cannot come up with a message for TYI. And it was sickening for him. He was literally sick to his stomach. So Saturday night before Sunday, he said, I don't know. I've got nothing. And I don't know what I'm going to do. We knew something was going to happen.
Something was going to happen, but I was fretting. I was in knots. And we had a song, and I got up to speak, to do my thing. And as I was standing up, an officer went to the altar. And then others went to the altar. The Lord said to me as loud as ever, "This is it." And I remember saying out loud, "This is it. This is it." And God just kind of said, "We don't need a speaker. Don't pay anybody to come. You don't need a sermon. I'm going to do it through this song and through so many other things." And so that I certainly recall.
And that time lasted through lunch.
I had 29 TMIs. So actually I was able to see at least two generations going back. I think of the 1980s, you had delegates like Andy Barrington, who was a high school student, Jason Hathorn, Daniel Meeks. As the conservatories were developing, we figured out how can we get better quality instructors at the conservatory. So we looked to England to find some young college-age students who would come. So out of that came Philip Byrne, Stephen Byrne, Nick Simmons Smith, and many, many others, the three of the notables, who then themselves became great DMDs. But looking at those 30 years, 29 years, we've seen now the next generation, the children of those DMDs now coming through TMI. So we've seen over the years, leadership develop, people then getting the leadership positions, and then their children, and of course their students, moving on to the next generation.
They're just the most amazing weeks that the Army, I think, offers our young people.
It was really like a family reunion for us.
It's wonderful to watch how God takes that week where 300 young people come from across the territory, and God just does something special in their lives. and in that place. It's really, for me, the word would be special.
Lifelong friendships are made during those days together. We see many people that keep in contact. A lot of times that week is the time when they can be together and renew their friendships.
And then for those at TMI, that was my first encounter, was really TMI. And, it's just such a great camaraderie among musicians and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wasn't invited to TMI because I did not qualify on any level to have an instrument in my hand.
Music unites us. It brings us together. And our worship group at the time, originally they were called Quarter Past Three. Two of the leaders of the group were Phil Lager and Marty Michaels. And they had both been writing new things. They had both been taking old Salvation Army songs and giving them new tunes and updating the lyrics. When TYI was over, one of the things we said is, how can we kind of take something of this experience, this amazing, life-changing experience, and help the delegates have it at home? We were able to make a CD, which is kind of old school now, but Send the Fire was the CD, but lots of stuff that Phil and Marty had arranged and written for that week are on that CD. And actually one of the great claims is that it's been the most produced worship CD in the Salvation Army around the world.
We came into the Territorial Youth Department at a time when this thing called MySpace. Mm-hmm. And so when we started connecting with social media, it became apparent that the globe got smaller. Mm-hmm. And around the world, people had a connection that they really hadn't had before. Mm-hmm. And so then we became global citizens. Mm-hmm. And when we became global citizens, we also had that moment to take global responsibility and become aware, and not just aware, but to take action around the globe. And I think that movement also grew into and enabled people to not just recognize the need in their community, but actually go global. And Service Corps and these other options and avenues that the Army had and still has allowed them to sign up and go and be a part. And I think even today we have global missionaries from the Army from those TYI days.
Yeah, I think I'll probably never forget one of the TYIs. I guess it would have been our first TYI with Steve Carter as our special guest, and just the moving of the Spirit in those Bible study times and times of commitment after that.
And I can remember in one of those very small, actually it was in Texas, and it was just a group of young men, 17, 18-year-old men. On the surface were very big and overt, but I can remember like it was yesterday, just one of those young guys talking about how he needed to, uncover the hatred that he had for his stepfather. And it was almost like a blink of an eye that whole circle started to turn, and young men just started to weep, because they were carrying such heavy burdens and things that had been buried in their life that really were keeping them from really understanding the fullness of God.
It seemed to be like in the middle of the week, there was this shift. I mean, it's like everything in the room changed. Everybody was on the same page, and you just knew, and I looked forward to it, and I prayed for that. For every TYI. We
took everybody to the water park, and we did just a
flash mob.
Yeah, the
flash mob. Yeah, I did the flash mob, and really, in a nutshell, that was TYI. It was something bigger than ourselves. I mean, anytime you bring 300 on fire young people, salvationists into a single place, something special is going to happen.
Blimey, we're on.
We're on.
Before we do this, tell me what's going to happen.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is holy ground, and that's how I feel about TYI. Something happens
I mean, are there even words that are adequate?
It's almost like TYI and TMI are the descriptors, and you want to say it's just like TMI or it's just like TYI.
TMI is very busy, very hectic. The days are full of stuff, but it's all good stuff, Caleb. It's worship, it's education, it's fellowship, it's high energy. It's just a great week. It sort of feels like 4 weeks packed into one.
And so many times I've looked at TYI, the community at TYI, and I've just said, that's the church. That's the kingdom. That's the power that God's talking about.
It's a celebration of our differences, but coming together in unity and appreciating one another, appreciating the different cultures.
When I first came to TMI, it was very much a band camp, and we also sang. And then we started to add different tracks, and Dr. Holtz was very clever in attracting a vocal score, for instance, introducing piano to the curriculum. Worship teams were really taking off, and we added creative arts, dance, drama, musical theatre. So in terms of our different disciplines, very diverse now. I would say it's the most diverse music school in the world, in the Army world. Very diverse, and people look different. They don't all look like me, which is really great.
You know, when I reflect on my own experience going as a delegate, I actually only got to go 1 year as a delegate to TYI, and that was the summer of 1994, which in my mind feels like it was just yesterday. The Laniers were the TYSs then, and I remember that the guest that year was Mike Yaconelli. And Mike Yaconelli was saying things that I had never heard before. And that made me come alive in my faith, that message. What's really thrilling for me is now to sit here and reflect on the privilege and the deep honor I had just a handful of months ago to speak at Lieutenant Colonel Sheila Lanier's retirement service and to honor what she built into my life when I was a young person.
It's kind of a strange year. In fact, we were talking even before our conversation officially began that this is a year of strange things.
God is still working. Like, this has been a pause, and this has been certainly uncomfortable. We want the young people and the older people of this territory to know that God is unfailing. Like, He hasn't failed us.
Yeah.
And I would say to anyone who's thinking, oh, maybe I don't want to go to TY, or maybe it's going to be different this year, I'm saying watch it, go, because God, no matter what format, if your mind and heart are open, God is going to change your life.
Today, when I was thinking about our time together, the Lord just gave me these words, and I would like to share for all the young people that will be listening. Isaiah 58:12 says, "Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwellings."
You won't be able to gather together. Sorry, I'm gonna get emotional. And I just want to encourage our young people just to stay strong and just stay in the Lord. And though you may not be physically together, the power, that same power that has just brought us together, TYI after TYI, TMI, year after year after year, this year will be no different. In fact, I want to make a prophecy that God is going to bind you together, bind them together in a way that's unlike anything we've ever seen before, as if the power of all the TYIs that have been in the South for the years behind are going to inform and just roll in to what's going to happen this year.
In terms of this year, obviously this is a virtual experience and it's not ideal. And we want to be together, we want community, we want to hug, we want to teach face to face, we want to play our instruments. We won't really be able to do that virtually online. But my feeling is this, two things. Firstly, this is better than doing nothing. It's better than just saying, oh, well, we can't do what we normally do, let's just sit at home. And secondly, it's so vital to connect with the young people, even in just conversations, even in chat with the different classes that we're going to do at TMI. Just to have that connection is so important.
I would also just say these are significant days. We are entering a new era. where God wants to use His church in unprecedented ways. Just like we've gone through an unprecedented time with COVID and different things in our world, the truth is that for the church, God wants to use us in unprecedented days coming ahead. And I believe these are exciting days. I really do. And so young people, don't give up hope.
Cheryl and I have believed for many years that revival will come through our young people. We have the opportunity to rise up and to bring peace, to bring solutions, to bring hope to people who are without it right now.